I don't even have answers to those questions. And those questions are very valid, but I don't have answers to them. I just disappeared. Okay? Truth be told, I was mm, I wasn't necessarily in the mood to press record for a very long time, which is funny because I had so much content and ideas and just things that I wanted to talk about, but to like set up everything and press record, yeah, it wasn't there. But guys, don't worry, I'm out of that rant. Okay, I experienced a very normal human experience and I'm out of it now. And quite frankly, it is very nice to be back um in front of a microphone and speaking to you guys about topics and things that I find very fascinating and interesting and somewhat confusing sometimes. Um so yeah, guys, welcome to another episode of This May Be Nothing. Okay, so I think we're just gonna dive straight in, avoid all the awkwardness of where have you been, what have you been doing, because I am quite excited about this conversation. A lot of people have asked me, "Oh, Dana, when are you gonna like talk about dating and stuff and all of that?" And I always pushed it back. It's like, "Ah, yeah, one day, one day." I think one day is now because I was confronted with a few things, and I was like, "This could be a great podcast episode." And then I did all the research. I read all the books, not all the books, but I read some books, and I had some conversations. And then I just sat with all of this. And yeah, I think now is the time to get my act together, to find my groove again, to find my mojo, and get back into it. So guys, welcome to another episode, man. I've missed you guys. And if you do not know, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Diana and I overthink everything, even the things that are unnecessary to overthink. I will overthink it. And then we have a conversation about it. And so yeah, before we get started, please guys, like, share this podcast, okay? Because it will definitely help with exposure and all of that. And yeah, and like and comment. Let's have a conversation. Let's genuinely have a conversation in the comment section. You can find this podcast on Spotify, yay, Apple Music, and sorry, not Apple Music, Apple Podcast, because Apple still has two different apps for music and podcasts. But also you can find us on YouTube. So yay for all those people that have been asking for YouTube. We're finally here. Yeah, let's have this conversation because you can already see in the title it's about to get lit. Okay, so I I'm going to briefly tell you about a conversation I had with someone like a while ago. This was a while ago. And it sent me into the spiral as per usual. And I mean this in the most entertaining way possible because I was just like, what? You know? Someone asked me very, very casually, like it was a normal question to ask. And it probably is. I was probably just overthinking it. They asked if I was on any dating apps. And all I can do was stare at them confusedly, in confusion, because I don't know if confusedly is a word, but I stared at them in confusion for a little bit. Um, because in the back of my mind, I was asking myself, like, what is the correct answer to this question? Is it yes? I am, even though I'm not? Is it no? Is it's complicated? Because truth be told, I have had a love-hate relationship with dating apps. Ha. I would download them, set up my little profile, start doing the swiping, get bored and then delete the app. And then 2 weeks later, do it again, you know. Um change up my profile a little bit, tell you a little bit more about myself, tell you that I have a really cool sense of humor and I love Marvel movies and all of these things. And then I'll start swiping and I'm just like, I cannot. And then I would delete it. So I've had a love-hate relationship with dating apps and I wasn't ready to talk about it. And it's funny how that one question sent me down a rabbit hole that lasted approximately 3 days. Yeah, I was having conversations. I was even on like TikTok and Instagram and just listening to people's horror stories. People have gone through the most out there in the apps, eh? And and after like a very long shower one time, just thinking about it, it's now become your problem. And so we're going to talk about it. When I say we're going to talk about the dating apps, I'm not necessarily talking about the swipe right for love type of way, and not even in the technology is ruining everything, because now there is an app for literally everything. Um, I think as much as those two things, those two conversations are very valid, they are a little bit boring because we've been having these conversations. And on this podcast, we don't do boring. We don't. Maybe we'll do a little bit of sparsy, but we definitely don't do boring. Instead, we are going to be talking about what dating apps have actually done to us as a people, as a society, what it's done to the way we think, to the way we see people, and to the very specific skills that we need to make anything real work. Skills that I would argue the apps are quietly training us out of. And if there's anything that I am very transparent about on this podcast, I am not a self help type of person. I am not going to give you advice that I swear on because, quite frankly, dude, I don't have all the answers. I am very much still figuring this out. But I've been thinking about things long enough that I have some thoughts, and I think they are worth talking through together. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. Um, let's let's start in the beginning, right in the beginning, before the right before the dating apps. So let's start right in the beginning, because I think we forget that dating apps were actually a reasonable idea to a problem, right? The pitch at the time made so much sense. You are a busy person and the world is very big. Meeting people organically is increasingly difficult when you have to spend 8 hours of your day in an open plan office sitting next to Bob or working from your kitchen table. And so here is an app. We found a solution. Here's an app. It will show you the people near you who are also looking for the same things that you are. So what do? You download, you swipe, they swipe, you match, you talk, you meet. Simple, efficient, optimized. Um, Tinder launched in 2012 and was genuinely described as the app that changed dating forever. And quite frankly, they weren't wrong. Tinder really did change dating forever, just not quite in the way the press release suggested. Because here's the thing about efficiency, it works really well for tasks, it works really well for logistics, and it works beautifully if you're trying to book a flight or order some food. I don't think it works well for human beings. And in my readings and my research and, looking around, I stumbled upon this concept called the paradox of choice. And an author by the name of Barry Schwartz wrote an entire book about it. And the basic idea is that the more options you have don't necessarily make you more satisfied. They make us less satisfied, more anxious, and more likely to second guess whatever we eventually choose, right? And you can apply this logic to literally anything, because in the back of our minds, there's always the question of, but what if something better is just one more swipe away? What if something better is just one more step away? Whatever it is. And when I thought about it, I was like, oh, we have applied supermarket logic to human beings and then acted surprised when it felt dehumanizing, right? We optimized for options and got paralysis. Uh, we built a machine for meeting people and somehow got lonelier. And then, on top of all of that, there's the swipe mechanic of it all, okay? Which I think doesn't get talked about enough. and we need to talk about it more often. You are making a decision about a full human being, someone with a whole life, a whole history, a whole interior world in less time than it takes you to decide what you're having for lunch. And me, personally, that's a very long decision. And then you move on to the next one and the next one. And 40 people later, you've had 40 rejections and 40 micro validations, and you haven't actually connected with anyone. And somehow you're more tired than when you started. Am I the only one that is like thinks this way? I feel like the apps have trained us to make judgments and immediately move on. And then we wonder why, when we actually get to go on this date, something just kind of feels off. Like, why we're half present and why we're already in the back of our heads cataloging whether this person is worth the investment or not. Because we've made these snap judgments when we were on the apps already. All of these things are happening on the date before you've even finished your first drink. Imagine. And the thing is, I'm not saying everyone's experience is like this, okay? Please don't hear what I'm not saying. Okay? People really do meet on the apps. Real things do get built. I'm not here to be cynical about that. And I actually have a really good friend who is marrying the love of her life very, very soon. And they met on Tinder. So, like, these things genuinely do happen. What I'm saying is that the mechanics of the apps, the infinite scrolling, the swiping, the matching algorithm, the gamification of human connection were designed to keep you on the apps, not to get you off it and then into a relationship immediately. And that design has consequences for how we think, even how we think when we're not on the apps. And that's what I find interesting. Okay, so we have established that apps sold us a dream that doesn't quite work the way it was advertised. But here's what I find even more interesting, because I found many things interesting when trying to put this podcast together. It's not just our dating habits that have changed, it's deeper than that. It's the way we see people. And so let's talk about what that actually looks like for us. I want you to think very, very surface level about what a dating app profile actually is, right? It is a photo, it is a short description, it's a few data points, your age, your location, maybe your job title if you're feeling fancy. We see you, CAs, we see you. And based on that, someone decides in under 3 seconds whether you're worth their time or not. That is product listing. Like, that is exactly what product listing is. And it's funny because we joke about it all the time. We joke about this. We say stuff like, oh, I'm on the market, or I'm back on the shelf, or even things like what else is out there. And I don't think we sit with what it actually means that we've imported the language of commerce into the language of intimacy. We're talking about people the way we talk about options. We talk about relationships the way we talk about investments. And we even talk about moving on the way we talk about upgrades. And hey, guys, I'm also speaking to the choir. Even me, even me, I've spoken like this. Like, when did a person become something you upgrade from? And then, on top of all of that, because there are so many layers to this thing, there's the situationship, which is, if you think about it, essentially, if you think about it as a like product listing, as like dating as a product, the situation the situationship is a subscription model, right? You know roughly what you're getting yourself into. It's convenient. There's no real commitment required, no contract, no difficult conversation, and if something better comes along, you can just cancel. No notice required. As a matter of fact, I see ghosting in this context as the canceling without the confirmation email. And the wildest part is that both people usually know what it is. Both people can see the structure very clearly, and both people keep subscribing anyways, because at least it's something, right? Because the alternative, actually asking for what you want, actually making yourself vulnerable enough to say, I want more than this, that feels terrifying in a way that the apps have made feel unnecessary. Because why risk all of it when you can just keep swiping? Hey? And here's the cost of this that I think we underestimate. Real relationships, the ones that actually go somewhere, that actually mean something, requires friction. They require showing up when it's not exciting anymore. It requires tolerating the Tuesday version of someone, the version that is tired and is a bit boring and not performing their best self. Apps are optimized for excitement and engineered to eliminate friction. Let's be real, right? So every time you go back to the apps instead of sitting with the discomfort of something real, we're essentially practicing avoidance. We're training ourselves out of the exact tolerance we need to build anything lasting. And we're doing this in a way that feels completely reasonable in the moment because there's always another option. There's always another profile. The scrolling never ends. Come on now, guys. It's happening. Now, I want to be honest here, okay? Because I don't think it's fair to sit here and just blame everything on the apps. Um, that's too easy. And it's also not quite right because the apps didn't create these fears. They didn't invent avoidance or the fear of commitment or our completely unrealistic idea of what love is supposed to look like. I think what the apps have done was just it took all of that and gave it a very convenient home. So let's talk about that. I think the fear of commitment did not start with Tinder. I think it's been there long before. Like people have been dating long before the dating apps. I think avoidance of vulnerability did not begin with a Hinge profile. And particular terror of being truly known by another person, that has been a human problem for a very, 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 very long time. I think what the apps did was give it all a very elegant infrastructure. Just keeping my options open. This isn't a sentence that we have never heard before. It's said all the time now. It's so normalized. But now it has an entire app ecosystem built around it. Now there's a system that actively rewards you for keeping your options open. That makes it easy and low cost and completely normalized. So I think for me, the question that I keep coming back to is what are we actually afraid of? Because I don't think it's the apps. I think the apps are just the easiest available answer to a fear that was already there. We were sold a very specific idea of what love is supposed to look like. And I mean sold, all caps, literally. Movies sold it to us, music sold it to us, social media is selling it to us right now. Love is supposed to be electric from the first moment. It's supposed to feel effortless. It's supposed to be visibly appealing at all times and it consistently makes for good content. However, real people are awkward. They're inconsistent. They have bad days and boring phases, and they say the wrong things at the wrong moments. They're absolutely terrible at being romantic on a Tuesday when they are tired and have a headache and forget to reply to your message for hours. The apps let you avoid Tuesday. They let you stay in the exciting bit, the early conversations, the first impressions, the butterflies, and step away before anything requires actual work because the alternative is always right there. One tap away, one swipe away. Because it's very easy to mistake this is getting real and slightly uncomfortable for this isn't right. Yeah. There's always something else. And I want to acknowledge it here. I want to acknowledge that because I think it's important. A lot of us have been hurt. A lot of us have watched people that we love and care about get hurt. And keeping things casual, keeping your options open, not fully investing, that genuinely feels safer and it is a form of protection. And I don't want to make it sound like it's an irrational fear or like you going crazy or anything because it's not. It's a completely logical response to having been in pain before, to feeling hurt. I just think that the apps make that logic very easy to act on indefinitely. They make it possible to manage risk forever, not quite having to take the leap, to stay in the comfortable space of potential without ever having to find out if something is real. And I think that's what I find most interesting about this whole conversation. It's not really about the apps, if I'm being honest. The apps are just a mirror. What's actually interesting is what we see in its reflection. So so if the apps are just the mirror and the fear was already there and the unrealistic expectations were already baked in, what do we actually do with all of this? I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers because I do not. I am in the same boat you are. Yeah, listen. But I have some thoughts, as per usual, that are worth sitting with. So, first of all, I am definitely not going to tell you to delete the apps. I'm not going to do that. Okay. That is not what this is about. Okay. People genuinely meet on apps and they build real, lasting relationships. And it happens. I've seen it with my eyes. I'm experiencing it. Well, I'm not experiencing it, but I'm experiencing, like, I'm seeing somebody that I care for, um, about to marry her man that she met on on a dating app. And I don't think that the apps itself are the villain in the story, but there is a difference between an app as a tool to meet people and using an app while still operating entirely on app logic. Walk with me. Still always browsing, still always optimizing, still threatening every interaction like a potential upgrade rather than an actual human encounter. That version of it, the one where you're on a date but mentally you're already back on the app, is probably not serving you. The more interesting question, I think, is what would you do differently if the option wasn't always there? Oh, and I ask myself, well, I'm starting to ask myself this question as well. Would you communicate more? Would you try harder to understand someone instead of just writing them off the very first time you see something that you don't quite like or agree with? Would you actually address the things instead of quietly phasing someone out over the course of 2 weeks while leaving them completely confused about what is happening? I think the apps remove a certain kind of accountability, that's for sure. The accountability of scarcity, of knowing that this person in front of you is genuinely rare, and with the effort, getting some of that back, even just as an internal shift, changes how you show up, I think. It changes how you are willing to work through things. There's also something worth noticing about whether you are bringing app logic into the relationship you already have, the friendships, the connections that exist in real life. Are you keeping your options open with people who deserve more clarity than that? Or are you treating real friction as a deal breaker because you've been trained to see friction as a sign to swipe left? Because friction is not a red flag. Okay? Sometimes friction is just Tuesday, and Tuesday is where everything real gets built. That's what I think, at least. And finally, the most uncomfortable, honest take, and I say this with full awareness that it applies to me just as much as anyone else. Some of us are not actually ready to date because we are probably performing dating. We're not going through the motions of putting ourselves out there while simultaneously making sure nothing can actually get in. And the apps make that very, very, very easy to do for a very, very, very long time. There's no shame in it, but knowing it, actually being honest with yourself about it, is the difference between wasting your time and everyone else's or not. Okay, I think I've said everything I came here to say, so let me land with something useful, I hope. Here's the thing I think I keep coming back to is that dating apps didn't make us bad at dating. We weren't perfect before the dating apps and we're not doomed because of them. Um but they did make it significantly easier to avoid getting better at it, in my opinion. I think they gave our fears a very comfortable home and our avoidance a very socially acceptable name. And they did it so smoothly and so entertainingly that most of us didn't even notice it was happening. I think the real flex, and I mean this genuinely not as a motivational poster type of way, is noticing when you're using app logic in real life on real people and choosing consciously to do something differently, to stay and to communicate and to sit with the Tuesday. Oh, poor Tuesday, man. I don't think you have to have all of this figured out. I certainly do not. But thinking about it honestly, actually looking at your own patterns instead of just blaming the algorithm, that's already more than most people. Anyways, it's been real. I'm so glad to be back, and that's all I've got for today's episode. If this made you think about your situationship a little bit too hard, I am sorry. No, actually, I'm not. I really am not. You probably needed it. We all needed this. Okay. Guys, please share this with someone who will find it uncomfortably relatable or someone who just needs to hear it. Either way, please, guys, share. Both of these, the examples that I just gave, are both valid and both are appreciated. Guys, gals, this may be nothing, but the apps have a lot to answer for. I am Diana, and I will see you in the next episode. Cheers.